Imagine standing waist-deep in freezing mud as the first grey light of dawn breaks over no man's land. The air, well, it just reeks of cordite, decay, and the acrid bite of chlorine lingering from last night's gas attack. Your boots, waterlogged for days, squelch with every movement. This is not a camping trip gone wrong. This is the Western Front, and for millions of men between 1914 and 1918, this trench was home. Today we're diving into the forgotten fieldcraft that kept soldiers alive through 24 hours of hell, revealing survival techniques that transformed ordinary men into masters of improvisation under the most brutal conditions imaginable. At precisely 5 in the morning, whistle blasts pierce the pre-dawn darkness. Every man scrambles to the fire step, rifle loaded, bayonet fixed, staring into the gloom of no man's land. This ritual, called Stand To, capitalized on the oldest rule in nature: predators hunt at twilight. Both sides knew dawn and dusk offered perfect cover for attack, when shadows played tricks and visibility wavered between blindness and clarity. Soldiers stood motionless for up to 2 hours, scanning for movement while their bodies screamed for warmth. The fieldcraft here was psychological as much as tactical, learning to quiet your breathing, to become part of the trench wall itself, to distinguish the rustle of wind through barbed wire from the crawl of an enemy patrol. Those who mastered this stillness, who could read the landscape's subtle changes, lived longer. After Stand To came the rum ration, roughly 2 ounces of SRD, service rum diluted, though soldiers bitterly joked it meant seldom reaches destination. This wasn't indulgence, it was battlefield medicine, warming frozen cores and steadying frayed nerves for the day ahead. The trenches themselves were marvels of desperate engineering, carved from necessity and maintained through relentless labor. Soldiers became instant architects, learning to read soil composition the way a modern survivalist reads terrain. Clay walls held firm but turned to sucking quicksand when wet. Chalky earth crumbled under bombardment but drained well. The British preference for deeper, more elaborate trench systems reflected a commitment to semi-permanent occupation, complete with funk holes, small caves dug into trench walls where men curled like foxes in dens, seeking any refuge from shrapnel and weather. These shelters required constant reinforcement with salvaged timber, corrugated iron, and sandbags filled during the precious hours of darkness. The Germans, expecting shorter occupancy, often built superior dugouts 30 feet deep, complete with electric lighting and bunks, transforming survival architecture into underground fortresses. Every soldier learned to shore up walls with A-frames, to angle drainage sumps away from sleeping areas, and to identify the telltale slump of earth that preceded a cave-in. This was bushcraft under fire, using available materials to create livable space where none should exist. Water reached the front lines in petrol cans, arriving with a faint taste of fuel that never quite disappeared. Soldiers learned to add tea or powdered chocolate to mask the petroleum taint, a simple adaptation that made the unpalatable barely tolerable. The daily ration, roughly 4,000 calories when supply lines held, centered on hard-tack biscuits so tough men soaked them in tea or fried them in bacon grease to avoid breaking teeth. Bully beef, canned corned beef from Argentina, became the protein staple, eaten cold from the tin or heated over makeshift braziers fashioned from perforated metal and fueled by anything combustible. Soldiers discovered that mixing crumbled biscuit with bully beef and water created a filling, if monotonous stew they called trench pudding. The real fieldcraft emerged during supply disruptions, when men foraged behind lines for wild garlic, dandelions and nettles to supplement rations, or traded cigarettes with French civilians for eggs and bread. They learned to protect food from the ubiquitous rats, creatures grown grotesquely large on human and horse flesh, by suspending supplies from wires or storing them in sealed tins. Water discipline became sacred. Men rationed their canteens, knowing resupply came only after dark, learning to rinse their mouths without swallowing to stretch supplies through long, thirsty days. When dusk stand to ended and darkness finally concealed movement, the real work began. Soldiers blackened their faces with burnt cork or mud, removed anything that might clink or reflect light, and climbed over the parapet into no man's land. These night patrols required fieldcraft refined to lethal precision, moving in absolute silence across ground studded with corpses and shell craters, navigating by memorized landmarks invisible in darkness, freezing completely when flares transformed night into day. Working parties repaired barbed wire entanglements, using leather gloves to handle the cruel metal, their ears tuned to every sound for signs of enemy patrols, working parallel missions mere yards away. Soldiers learned to crawl on elbows and knees to minimize silhouette, to use shell holes as cover, to move only when wind-masked sound. They developed a tactile literacy of no man's land, distinguishing mud types by feel, recognizing the different textures of German and British barbed wire, reading ground slope to navigate back to friendly lines. This was survival through sensory adaptation, becoming creatures of the night because daylight meant death. These men weren't born survivors. They were clerks and farmers, students and laborers, transformed by necessity into experts in the most demanding field school imaginable. The techniques they mastered, building shelter from nothing, stretching rations, moving unseen, maintaining composure under relentless stress, these aren't museum pieces. They're timeless principles of resilience and adaptation that speak directly to anyone who values self-reliance today. In our world of climate uncertainty and social fragility, the trench soldier's mindset offers profound lessons. Improvise constantly, waste nothing, watch everything, and never surrender your humanity to circumstance. If this journey into forgotten fieldcraft resonated with you, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles and share this with anyone who understands that history's harshest classrooms teach survival's most valuable lessons. The trenches are silent now, but their teachings echo still.